Hi guys, I'm Shmi, hello and welcome back to the channel where you join me today for my first drive in the new Porsche Taycan Turbo S. Now this is a particularly significant new car, both for Porsche as their first all-electric vehicle to be introduced, but also to myself, wondering when the time will come to add an electric car to the garage, and could the Taycan be the one that I would choose to buy, especially in the Turbo S top spec guise. Well, today I'm with Porsche at the Hockenheim ring to show you guys all around the car, to take it out for a drive to experience, which you can experience too at this year's Geneva International Motor Show as part of the Discovery Drives, where they'll have a host of electric cars to take out. So today it is Taycan Turbo S time. Let's take a good look and go see what it's all about. Firstly then, what exactly is this? Well, of course, Porsche showed the concept, the Mission E. The world was pretty much buzzing around that car, and this is now the production specification of the Taycan. And like I said, the Turbo S here we have is the current top spec above the Turbo and the 4S. This car has 761 horsepower and 1,050 Newton meters. There are two electric motors. It has a 2-speed transmission, but it is a sports saloon, a sports coupe. I guess it's a hatchback technically, a 5-door car. Plenty of space in the back, lots of technology, lots of screens, lots of displays. Now this car is currently running on the smaller winter wheels fitted with winter tyres. Of course it is very cold outside. In fact, I think it's probably only about 2 or 3 degrees. But let's take a quick look around the outside before we check out the interior, and then I guess kind of start it up to take it on out. Not literally, of course, being an electric car. So it can charge up to 80% in just 20 minutes thanks to the 800 volt architecture, has a 93.4 kilowatt hour battery. So this is quite a different, I guess, concept to the likes of the internal combustion car engines, but this is the direction Porsche are choosing to head. This is their first electric vehicle. We expect an SUV to follow. Around the front though, a very futuristic style design, but still distinctly Porsche, wearing the crest on the bonnet on the front. Around the side we have those 4 LEDs that you would expect from their matrix headlights. You've got the air curtains here for airflow aerodynamics around, likewise the air breathers that sit behind this. Now this is the charging port, of which there is one actually on each side, but the kind of cool thing about this is when the car is unlocked, which it does as you walk up towards it, but let's say it was already open, you literally swipe your finger on here and it opens. And then you have your charging port. This is the faster charging port on this side, where you've got the extra socket, and then you just do this again to close it. Just like that. You can't actually plug it in from both sides at the same time as you would expect, but exactly the same on this side. Quick swipe, that opens up. Really quite funky. Now to continue, I think I probably did that a bit too quick. To continue the tour, heading round towards the back here, active aero spoiler that raises at various different speeds at 90 kilometers an hour, and then at the top to a third angle at 200 kilometers an hour, via a third stage in the middle at 160. If we come down, you've got the Porsche logo inside the tail light housing. This is the Turbo S designation there on the back. Of course, quite a sporty rear end. You can see some exposed carbon, no tailpipes to look at being an electric car. As we come around to the side, the door handles are an interesting one, just like on the 992. Now the car locks and unlocks as you walk towards it, but to give you a demonstration of this, the handles go flush, so while you're driving and the car doors are locked, they sit in flush to be smoother, more efficient, and just look quite nice as well. As you walk up to it and they open, they pop on out, where I'll actually come around to the driver's side to show you on the interior of this some of the technology and displays that we have. And of course the car is loaded with screens, with sensors, with systems, with technology. You've got this curved display that mimics the kind of 911 style with multiple different roundels. You've got the haptic feedback display in the centre for your climate and that kind of thing. You've got a central infotainment, and there is also an additional display, an optional extra that you can add over there on the passenger dashboard as well, which is really very, very, very nice. Now I will touch on getting in and out of the car, which is a little bit difficult due to the placement of the B pillar. Of course, all to do with keeping the batteries and the weight of the car down towards the bottom. And it is 2,300 kilos or so. It is no kind of lightweight machine, but it still manages to propel up to 100 kilometers per hour in just 2.8 seconds, thanks of course to the 4-wheel drive system, instant torque, and over 1,000 Newton meters of that. Back here, decent amounts of space, but quite a narrow opening as well. We'll check out more of this later on. So I think it is time to step inside and to show you a little bit of how this starts up, because, well, it's quite a strange sensation. Now a few things carry over from other models, the likes of the haptic screen from the Panamera, the gear selector here, the 2-stage, 2-speed transmission but with the same toggle like in the 911, 992 variants. But you've also got a button to turn it on, should you wish, where the displays wake up and you can see what we've got in front of us. Plenty of screens. We've got 92% charge at the moment, but all of this showing us the different modes, the different toggles, which I'll discover as I head out for a drive on the roads. So let's do this then. My first time driving a Taycan. I've been looking forward to this. Let's find out what it's like. If you had just stepped in, you don't actually need to turn the car on. You can simply go effectively into gear using the 992 style toggle, and that is it. You are now ready to drive. So we are literally at the exit here. I'm currently in normal mode. The car has a few different selections for the drive mode through the toggle on the steering wheel, with that slight UFO-like sound in the back. Now when you're in Sport Plus, it actually has a sound generation system inside, which gives you quite an unusual sensation. So if we just play with this for a second, go into Sport, there we go, into Sport Plus. You have a very strange feeling, and I suspect these are going to become much more normal in electric cars. It's almost like an overrun of a petrol engine. That is unusual. Anyway, we're going to head out. I'm going to try and find some autobahns as well as some countryside roads to get a little bit of a feel for what this is like. In fact, I think I should go back into normal. But we're talking a car that's a little bit smaller than a Panamera, but it is still quite a large thing. You feel like you're sat pretty low down to the ground, and obviously it's a sporty style, a sporty shape. So that was kind of the objective. It's very much Porsche's DNA in a new technology. And there you can hear the regeneration as well. We'll touch on that a little bit later on. But there's that silence to it, and you know, if you do a launch control, they claim 2.8 to 62 miles an hour to 100 kilometers an hour, but you know it's going to be much quicker. The top speed is limited to 260 Ks, so that's about 161 miles per hour, that kind of thing. Just like this, nice gentle cruise to get started. The steering wheel is small. It's kind of actually like a Porsche GT steering wheel. Very, very small, a sporty feel to it. Those displays that you have in front of you, initially it feels good, but let's head a little bit further away and find some more roads. Conveniently, I am making my way towards the Autobahn, where we can see what this is going to be like on an open stretch. But if you're curious to get behind the wheel of an electric car, the likes of the Porsche Taycan, the Mercedes-Benz EQC, the Audi e-tron, the VW e-Golf, and many more are going to be at the Discovery Drives at the Geneva International Motor Show. Like I mentioned before, what you've got to do though is download the app, and I'll pop the link down below, and inside the app you can enter the raffle to drive the cars. You can also get discounted tickets to actually attend the show as well, and get plenty of news and other bits of information too about it all. We've got the Autobahns just up here though, where I will get to push this a little bit harder, but there you'll have the opportunity to experience what these kind of cars are like. So you can find all of that information down below. For the time being though, let's head out. I believe this is going to be a de-restricted section, which means we can put our foot down and well, not exactly get a screaming engine, but feel what the car is like. In this kind of driving around town, countryside, it's gentle, it's calm, it wafts along, but it does feel like a Porsche, where driving some electric cars gives you a very strange sensation. This feels like I'm in a normal Porsche, just without an engine noise. And by that I mean the interaction, the steering, the pedals, the feel of the car, some of the sounds, and obviously from a sound perspective you're much more conscious of wind noise and tyre noise and those kind of things. And we're running on the winter tyres right now, of course, which aren't the same kind of compound and setup as normal summer tyres, but help on a day like today, where, like I said, it is currently showing 4 degrees Celsius on the dashboard. We are out on the Autobahn. This section is de-restricted, so we'll wait for a little gap, pop the foot down, instant torque, and away we go. You just feel it pick up. You just touch the throttle pedal and away the car goes. Yes, we're not at big numbers because it's quite busy. Now, one thing you can change, which is quite curious, is the amount of regeneration. So at the moment it's in one setting, but you can literally press the button and it will change. So here in the low regen setting, it basically just cruises along and carries the speed. If you press the button, it means that in addition to the normal regeneration, it will lower the speed a little bit, but use that to harness the energy. And what's quite a statistic here, if you decelerate from 200 kilometers an hour to 0, just letting the car cruise to a standstill, it will create 4 kilometers of additional range. That's quite significant, 2.5 miles or so. Now the electric range, or the entire range I guess on the car, is, I think it's about 400 kilometers, just shy of 300 miles, which is not bad by any shout. At the moment we've got it on full steam ahead. The road just seems to have opened up a bit, so foot down, yeah, The craziest thing though is you have no sensation of speed. That's 172 kilometers per hour. That's almost 110 miles an hour just doing it. Just absolutely no drama, foot down, and away it flies. And that's in normal mode. We can of course put it into sport, up into sport plus, gets a little bit noisier. That's really strange, but this is where I'm actually going to come off to find some countryside lanes, so we will have another stretch on the Autobahn on the way back in a moment. For the time being, let's go see what it's like in a more dynamic environment. A nice and twisty road then. This is exactly what I was looking for. So we're still in Sport Plus at the moment. I'm going to keep it in this setting. And one thing I instantly notice is that gear change. It sounds so strange to say it in an electric car, but the change between first and second, you can tell it's a heavy car as you move on as well. And I mean, it's a 4-seat luxury car of this nature. It's never going to be particularly light, especially with the weight of the electric batteries. So yes, you feel that under braking. This car has the optional PCCBs, the carbon ceramic brakes, but the steering feel is very Porsche. Very, very Porsche. And the instant torque, the power is crazy. Clings on very nicely, incredibly flat as well. Dynamically, this is such a Porsche. It's just in every way. They've done this differently. They've gone about this in a very different way to other electric vehicles. That's really, really interesting. The acceleration is hilarious. It takes some getting used to, but it operates in the same way. You have that same sense from the throttle, from the steering, as I said, the same traditional characteristics that you might expect in a top specification Panamera, for example, you get in this, in the Taycan. Now obviously it would be slightly different in the Turbo, which has a little less power, and the 4S a little bit less than that, but this car is basically 625 metric horsepower normally, but then with the overboost is where you get all the way up to the 761. 761 horsepower. That's so much. It is just, it's beyond what you need. But it's very fun, and hey, we like that. But what this is really opening my eyes to, which is kind of what I thought from what I've seen and read and heard about this car before, is that it's a very different approach, but it also feels like an electric car that as a car guy, you can use, live with, and feel familiar with in normal driving. I have definitely happened upon a very good road to be out cruising on, to be discovering this car today. A bit of sunshine as we come through the trees, but it clings on very nicely, and like I said, it feels very flat, but you are also aware of how big the car is. This is quite a narrow road, and I'm incredibly conscious of the width of it, but that noise of the regen under braking, and I've got regen on the top setting at the moment, but you can have it adjusting with your different driving modes. Of course, you've also got individual driving mode if you want to set the car up exactly how you'd like it. Through a tight hairpin, clings on, clings on, clings on, back onto the power, and away you go. It's so quick. It just flies out of corners, and then you bring down the weight for the next with the carbon ceramics. This is a really, really, really interesting driving experience. One thing that I think carries through from a lot of electric cars is that you don't necessarily have the sense of how fast you are driving, because of course the different characteristics of engine tone that you're used to hearing aren't there. Obviously you do have that electrical UFO spaceship type sound. And I think I might actually just pop it back into sport for a second, just to try without that. Yeah, this is where it gets really, really strange. Still a little bit of sound. You've got a bar in front of you that flashes between green and blue, whether you're consuming or regenning the power. I've enjoyed this a lot more than I expected I was going to, and we still haven't gone for a full Autobahn stretch as well, which we can do now on the way back. The slightly ironic thing right now is that we're going into a tunnel. Normally, if I enter into a tunnel, I would pop my windows down, drop a few gears, and start screaming away. In this case, silence. Complete silence. And this car does silence very well. Almost kind of Rolls-Royce-esque. It just wafts and cruises along the road. And you don't feel a need to make, you don't instantly feel like you're missing that noise, because it has something else. It has its own character traits. Anyway, the Autobahn is this way. Let's go find it. Back down the slip road we go, and the lack of sound is such an eerie sensation. Let's pop it though back into Sport Plus. Get sound going on again. So fingers crossed it's going to be open enough for us here. Wait for a gap. That gear shift makes no sense. It makes no sense at all in this car. Let's see if we're going to get an opportunity. Right, foot going flat. Wow. 180, 190, 200, 210, 220, 230, 240, 250, and hard onto the brakes with 250 kilometers per hour in an electric car. It's bizarre. See, there's no kick down when you go full throttle. You get full regen when you're on the brakes from those kind of speeds. Impressive, because that was always one of the challenges for an electric car, was to have a high top end. They just run out of poke, but this kept pulling. The numbers kept growing and kept growing. This has been completely eye-opening. Honestly, I didn't expect to feel about this car how I do right now, and I haven't yet shown you half of the technology and things that you have inside and the other side of it all. Let's get back to base. I'll show you a little bit more. Parked back up with a very nice view in front, the backs of all of the cars in the lineup, but let me show you through more of this interior, and there is a lot to see. All of the different screens, the technology, the settings, the controls that you have available. I'm going to take you on a bit of a tour of all of this, but just before we do, the specification of this car. On the exterior, it's Carrara white, and on the inside to go with that, we've got the dual tone leather, the black up top, and the beige, finished with the wood veneers as well. And of course, there are a lot of different options that you can spec and have inside the car, including that extra display that offers the passengers some controls as well. But let me just start, let's say, from the outside. So turn it off just for a moment. Then when you open the door, the steering wheel lifts, my seat moves backwards, which makes it just a touch easier to climb in and out. But this is one of the kind of interesting things, the positioning of the B-pillar. Now when you step out, you do climb over these very nice illuminated side sills, but this is a little bit far forward, which is all to do with the space for the rear, but it does make it a little bit awkward to actually climb out of that. Now the reason for this, if you have a look here at the back, is that that's quite a narrow opening. Any further back and the rear passengers would find this quite difficult, which is of course all to do with the motors for the axles, one on each axle, and the batteries that are placed down low to keep the centre of gravity low, which have a cutout for the rear passengers' feet down there behind the seats. But ultimately, it makes it a little bit awkward to actually get in and out of this car. Now, of course, given the length of it, they've also introduced or added to it rear wheel steering. Gives the effect of shortening the wheelbase at slow speeds to help with manoeuvrability, but also stability at high speeds, as we've experienced by the direction that they turn with or against the front wheels. But let's say you've just come to the car. I'm going to close the door to kind of reset it and start from the beginning, so to speak. If you were walking away from the car and you come up towards it, it automatically detects you're coming from the key in your pocket, feeds you the door handle, you can take a step inside. Now, as soon as we do so, join me in here, the Taycan logo in front of us. This is where, if you wanted to go into gear, all you've got to do is that. And effectively it is on and ready to drive. I'm going to pop it back into park just for the moment. You can turn it on from the other side should you wish. But let's go through some of these screens. Starting, of course, with the dashboard. Now, this display is curved around in front of you. It is a very, very cool piece. You have these additional buttons around the side, but in the center, like a traditional 911, you have the round displays. A 911 would have had 5, but the other models from Porsche's lineup have the 3. In the center, where you're expecting to see a rev counter, is where, of course, you have your power chart. With a blue curve going around towards the right, you see your usage, and you get a green curve around towards the left, which is your recuperation. What is interesting about my drive so far is how the range is going. Now, you can see at the moment we've got 205 kilometers to empty. We have gone about 100 kilometers since we started out earlier on at 92%. So we've used 33%, which gives us a total range of approximately 300, just over 300, which, given I've been driving on the Autobahns at over 200 kilometers an hour and on some twisty roads in Sport Plus, isn't all that bad for a very cold day. It is now 4.5 degrees. So just beside that, on the left, you've got your speedometer. In the centre is the speed, the cameras at the front reading the speed signs to give you a notification of that. Lots and lots of cameras, sensors, detectors, everything you would imagine. Over towards the right, you have a display that you can change. So here at the moment, we've got the battery temperature, remaining percentage, and the voltage down at the bottom. But using the toggles on the steering wheel, you could change this, for example, to go through your drive mode, up into your sport chrono, lap timers should you wish, linked to the sport chrono option to have that clock up on the dashboard. You've got a lot of different screens, a lot of different bits of information you can bring up there, and then you've got your gear selection down to the right. And it is particularly intriguing to have an electric car with a gearbox, and you do feel, especially in Sport Plus, that shift from first to second. But basically in normal driving, it only uses second. First is just to get a quicker pull away if you're using launch control or that kind of thing, where the car just takes off like a rocket. Then either side of the display, like I said, you have these additional buttons. So over towards the left, you've got your light controls, turn on the fog lights, for example, all just these touch buttons. You can see how that works. Over towards the right, you've got your traction control, press and hold that to turn it off. PSM Sport, you can go through your suspension damper settings. You've got a lift, a four-wheel lift system as well, and then you've got this button which can be configured, but at the moment brings up the 360 cameras, as you would expect. Again, very high resolution, very high quality, really helpful, and the car has park assist and a number of other assistant settings that we'll go through as well. But you can see lots of cameras everywhere, giving you a full view, and it kind of turns as you do, so that all works super efficiently. Here is your selector: park, reverse, neutral, drive, all as you would expect. No point putting it in neutral to give the car a rev, that's not going to do very much. But then on the steering wheel itself, as I mentioned, it's a very small steering wheel, a very sporty feel to it, good grips, a few controls as well going around, your drive mode selector here to go between normal, sport, sport plus, individual should you wish to configure that and set it up to your heart's desire. In terms of the different options and menus, you got your adaptive cruise control, which uses radars and all sorts of technology, your light stalk and your wiper stalk over towards the other side. The air conditioning vents are an interesting one. With the air conditioning vents, if we come in here to the AC, like in the Panamera, if you go to individual, the way you adjust these, you don't try and move this, you do it like this. You adjust where the airflow is blowing, just like that. Kind of funky, and we can put it back onto diffused as well, should we wish to keep it a little bit more balanced all around. You've got pre-cool, there's just so much in here that we can go through. Just quickly on the doors, you've got your memory seats, lock, unlock, your mirror and window controls, storage bin as well, just to open that so you can see a little bit more. We've got the Bose sound system in this car as well. But then this is where it all really begins. This is where you have so much to go through. And one of the kind of fun things actually, here, you've got the speaking button, is to talk to the car. Hey Porsche. You see, I'm actually going to stop this because otherwise it's going to be listening to what I say on the camera and that's all going to go all over the place. But in here you've got your navigation. I mean, it's everything that you would expect this car to have. But I want to get through some of these other screens. So if you go into charge, for example, you'd be able to see information about what's going on with the actual charge of the car. Down below, you've got a few of the things, the apps and connected programs you might expect. But in here, in the car setting, is where we can change some of the stuff I like playing with. So the drive mode, the chassis, the level, the ride height, the recuperation, the aggressiveness of that, and the electric sport sound that we've been discovering today as well. Now you can actually duplicate most of these onto this screen. I think maybe when you're driving, maybe at the moment it just shows the Taycan logo, but you can have exactly that on there as well. And then you've got this, where you can kind of type and move around and use it as a touchpad. So you can see I'm kind of doing now to control and go around the different places. Also here obviously you've got hotkeys to jump to things you might want to use in particular. To go straight to settings, you've got your front and rear windows, your recirculation, your climate control settings, your heated seats, front and rear boots. In fact, let's just press this. You can see how you can open the different cubby holes for the plugs in the front and rear boot, and all of that will control through this haptic screen which kind of vibrates as you give it a press. The parking screen, that'll bring that back up. It's all here, it's all very easy to use, all very, very, very functional. We've got a Taycan logo here, nice big cup holders, little armrest storage here too, which actually has a phone charging pouch just there, if you can see that on the side. You can put your phone for some wireless charging, along with some USB ports tucked away in there as well. A little bit awkward and fiddly to access, but I suppose not all too bad. This is kind of hollow, goes all the way straight underneath, which is kind of funky bit of design. But other than that, it's all actually quite simple in here, quite simplistic, just smart and stylish. Now I'm leaving the car on for a moment. I hop on out. Obviously that will keep the headlights and things on just for a second. See those around the front, the matrix LEDs. I'm going to show you inside the back of the car quickly. while we're here, with its rear display on as well. Now the front seat is kind of in my position. There's room here, but it's not gigantic. You're aware the coupe roofline. I don't have a massive amount of headspace above me, but I would be happy on a long drive. I'm not the tallest in the world, about 5'10", 5'11", but I don't think if you were 6'2", 6'3", you'd be particularly happy in the back for a long drive. You do have down there though, a repeat of the touchscreen for the rear, heated seats and climate control, lots of different zones and things as you might expect. Back here, finished the same as up front. An armrest that pops out with some cup holders as well, but as you can see it's a 4-seater, there is no middle seat, that is a storage bucket. To climb out and just come back round, I'm going to show you inside the luggage space. I think to do so I might just turn it off quickly, press and hold, you can see how it moves all of the seats. You get the door a proper close. Soft close is coming in the future, but around the back, if I just grab the key, actually I don't need to grab the key, this is actually the button to open the tailgate. And you can see back here we've got the charging kit in the back. Let me just show you quickly in here. The charging kit that comes with the car. You can see this device which has a screen on it as well. Porsche already have quite a few stations set up for the fast charging. Close that back down. Come and show you the frunk as well. Open this up, we've got 81 litres in the front, just over 300 litres in the back. Catch like on a 911, quite a small little space, but it is an extra storage space up front, obviously with the axle and the motors behind, the motor I should say, behind. Washer fluid goes in there. Close that down for a moment. So, overall, what do I have to say about this driving experience? It has been very, very interesting. I think the first word that comes to mind is impressive. The integration of the technology, the moving of the game on a level. But a big part of driving to me is the emotive element, the spine-tingling feeling of a roaring engine up towards the red line. Now this is where I think the future is going to have a big change. We're going to have the likes of weekend sports cars where you can have that, a manual gearbox, a screaming naturally aspirated engine, but then your powerful, luxurious daily drivers, which is exactly where this sits, that still drives and feels like a Porsche, integrating all of this tech, but also in terms of the drive, in terms of the driving modes. I haven't lived myself with an electric car in terms of charging it up and avoiding range anxiety and making sure that you always have a plan for where you're going to fill the car up, charge the car back up, obviously not necessarily at a traditional petrol station, but I think that this has made me come away today with a very different view than how I started. I've been really, really impressed by it. I like it a lot. It is an expensive car, spec'd up over 200,000 euros here in Germany, but they've done this remarkably well, it has to be said. Don't forget, if you're interested as well in experiencing a Taycan, you can enter the raffle through the Geneva International Motor Show app. All of the information is in the link down below if you'd like to find out more about that, as well as getting discounts on tickets for the show as well. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you to Porsche for the opportunity to take this car out as well. I'm looking forward actually in the future to spending some more time with it. That is it for now though. Thank you very much for watching. As always guys, I appreciate your support an awful lot, and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers!